Cyberpunk 2077 is the new game by CD Projekt Red, the creators of the Witcher franchise, which I'm very fond of. Cyberpunk 2077 takes place in Night City, with big corporations that essentially does nothing, a whole lot of fuda, and a lot of black people. So essentially, it's a future version of Detroit. In Cyberpunk 2077, you play as V, a blank slate that never really does anything. A very big step down from Geralt being a pretty decent character in The Witcher. You can play as a nomad, a street kid, or a Jew. Throughout your adventures in Night City, you'll stumble across the funny Reddit Wholesome 100 Big Chunkus man, who's very funny and is very well utilized in the game, and delivers his voice line with all the fervor you'd expect from a AAA actor in a AAA game. Now, Johnny Silverhand hates the big Jews and the corporations and the banks, so Natsuck Johnny makes V his vehicle to destroy said corporations after he gets memed on by Adam Smasher, who's a big boy. With Natsuck Johnny in your brain and a chip that's about to, I don't know, detonate, or some virus that's about to get loose in your brain, you need to get rid of it before you die. And that's what the game is all about, really. Now, let's talk about the specifics of the game. You've all heard about the bugs. Honestly, in my opinion, I didn't encounter all that much. I played the game on PC, pretty underpowered PC, obviously. Or rather, honestly, bought it back in 2014. It's still holding up, though. I was able to play the game on medium settings. Yeah, I know. Go ahead and laugh at me. The game ran pretty well. There was a lot of texture popping. That was really the only negative that I encountered. But having played Kingdom Come Deliverance at release, Cyberpunk 2077 is acceptable. It was really only an issue with the cars on the street being rendered quite poorly the first couple of seconds there. When I got closer, it all cleared up though. Gameplay. The big no-no when it comes to The Witcher, well, 1, 2, and 3, really. Not really great. But you could expect as much from an action RPG. You really never really expect a whole lot of amazing gameplay from these games. It's all about the story and the characters. So gameplay feels pretty bad, honestly. Feels like the worst first-person shooter you've... maybe not the worst. Feels like one of the worst first-person shooters you ever played, you know? When it comes to the story, it's not nearly as good as The Witcher. Neither are side quests, even though side quests are better. So it's essentially akin to The Witcher 3, in which the main story is weak, but the side stories are pretty decent. It's the same thing here, only in The Witcher, the side stories were very good, and here they're just decent. Um, one of the major one of the major complaints I had in the game is definitely the driving, and the exploration seems to just be, at least what I encounter, to be absolutely nothing. I mean, the driving mechanics are just terrible. It's one of the first things I noticed. I didn't even want to drive. It's so terrible. I wanted to just run around, but then half the city is just a fucking desert and there's nothing there, so you just basically have to. Exploration is, it's there, but it just lacks the detail that The Witcher 3 did, or The Witcher 2, or The Witcher 1, or any of the other products that CD Projekt Red has released in the past, or even this game's contemporaries, such as Fallout, for instance. Even those new pieces of shit have more detail to them than Cyberpunk 2077 does. It's barren. It's barren. It's like a 30-year-old woman's womb. It's just barren. There's nothing there, and you're a cuck if you like it. I won't spoil the endings, of course, but there's a lot of them. There's some variation there, as you would expect with a story-driven game with a lot of character to it, a lot of characters in it, as opposed character-centric storytelling. You would expect there to be some different endings, and there are. I experienced two of them. One of them was good, the other one was not. Again, I won't spoil what happened, but again, there's room for replayability, which is good because the game is very, very short. Well, very, very short. It's short when you think about what it is, which is an open world RPG. You'd expect, clocking in around 50, 60 hours. Well, I did, but only because I had to experience a second ending, so I had to go back to a previous save and do some different stuff. Other than that, I think my first playthrough was about 40 hours, and you know, that's okay. It's not awful, but it's not great either. It's somewhere in the middle there. It would be perfect. 40 hours would be perfect if the game was a goddamn masterpiece, but it's not. It's very much not. Which brings me to my final point here, which will be a score, a very objective score that is based on, there's absolutely no emotion here to be found. I'll give Cyberpunk 2077 and Nat Sock Johnny his frivolous adventures against the Jewish state a 6 out of 10. It's okay. Luckily I got it for free because a friend of mine wanted wanted to buy the game for me. That's how I got it. Just so happened that I didn't spend any money on the game, and from that perspective, it's certainly worth the no money that I paid for it. I'm not sad that I spent my time with it, but if I had spent $60 on this game, yeah, it would have been a massive letdown, especially considering that the last game they made was just the game of the year. Very few people contested that. Some people said Fallout, some people said Bloodborne. Very few people were completely uh, in disagreement with The Witcher 3 certainly being up there that year. This year, I don't think Cyberpunk even holds a candle to, let's say, even Yakuza 7 or Like a Dragon or whatever you want to call it. It's a massive letdown, but I guess that's what happens when you hire a bunch of trannies and women to do your job for you, and talented men leaves to do other work. Nat Suck Johnny is pretty funny, though.